there, creatives. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Creative Psychotherapist podcast. This is going to be season 2, episode 12, and I'm having a conversation with Amanda Shaw, who is an art therapist and a mental health counselor in St. Petersburg, Florida. And she is sharing a bit about starting a practice in one city and then moving to a completely different city and kind of how she navigated that and like saved for that and kind of helped herself to make that challenging transition. It's hard enough to start a practice in one place, but then to have to relocate your practice to another locale, especially if you're, mostly providing in-person services, it can be quite challenging. So she shares a bit about her experience with that, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
The Creative Psychotherapist is the official podcast of the Creative Clinicians Corner, a practice-building resource for creative psychotherapists. TCP Podcast is the cast for creative, expressive, and experiential-focused psychotherapists curious to learn how to design, build, and scale a thriving private practice. Your host, Raina Lombardi, interviews successful therapists about the tools and strategies they have used to develop creative-focused practices. They also talk about the products, services, and side hustles they have developed using their knowledge and creativity to enhance their therapy practices, make a greater impact in their communities, and diversify their income streams. Welcome. Now here's your host, Raina Lombardi.
Thanks for listening to the Creative Psychotherapist podcast. I'm your host, Raina Lombardi, and I'm very, very excited to welcome my next guest. Her name is Amanda Shaw, and she's a licensed mental health counselor in Florida. She is a registered art therapist and the sole owner of Create, Flow, Heal Art Therapy and Counseling, LLC, located in sunny St. Petersburg, Florida, which happens to be my hometown. And she uses a holistic, client-centered approach and provides mental health counseling and art psychotherapy to adolescents, adults, and families, as well as hosting wellness retreats throughout the year. In addition to working with individual clients, Amanda also works with local nonprofits in the St. Pete area. Currently in partnership with Selah Freedom, she provides art therapy groups for sex trafficking survivors. Selah Freedom is a faith-based nonprofit anti-human trafficking organization based in Florida and the Midwest, with their mission being to end sex trafficking and bring freedom to the exploited. Prior to the start of her career, she earned her master's degree at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., with an emphasis on trauma-informed care and art psychotherapy. Her undergraduate studies were in psychology from the University of Central Florida, and she has a professional background working in a variety of settings: acute psychiatric, assisted living, memory care, substance abuse recovery, eating disorder treatment, school-based programs, and sex trafficking residential treatment centers. She's been featured in the Sarasota Magazine, presented at conferences held by the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and was the former membership chair of the Florida Art Therapy Association from 2019 to 2020. Being an artist at heart, she loves painting, creating, doing yoga, and walking her puppy, Bentley, who keeps her on her toes. And she's an avid chess player and loves taking trips to the beach. I did not know that you're a chess player.
I am. Yep. I
That's
am.
totally unexpected. But
I just
cool.
love, chess is just so much fun. I did it as a kid and then still to this day as an adult.
Yeah.
So, but I'm just so excited to be here. Thank you so much for that introduction.
Yeah, I'm
It
excited
sounds like
to
there's a
have you.
plan going on.
So let's talk a little bit about I've had the pleasure of knowing you for quite a while, and So I know that you started your practice on the East Coast of Florida.
Well, I started actually in Bradenton, Florida. And, but I knew I was always going to open a private practice. So I guess you could say I started the social media part when I was still
Oh.
under supervision, because I was like, I'm going to start building up just some presence online. And I'm so glad that I did that too, because when I actually finally opened up my practice, it was like I already had that part kind of finished, and it was really easy. So
Okay. And so how long were you open serving clients in Bradenton before you made the switch to jump over to St. Pete, which for folks that aren't from Florida, it's probably like 45 minutes, an hour difference, but
mm,
it's across a giant body of water. You have to cross this giant bridge called the Skyway Bridge. A lot of people hate this bridge. So it's not exactly a convenient, like if you were to move, clients wouldn't be like, yeah, let me drive that distance to continue to see you. Um,
yeah, and you have to pay a toll to go across the bridge.
that's right.
Uh, yeah, so Bradenton, I was doing I was working in another private practice at the same time when I finally decided to apply for my LLC. So it was probably only a couple of months, and my goal was always just to transition away from that private practice to have my own. So I was doing them both at the same time until I felt comfortable enough to kind of step out. I would say maybe 3 or 4 months.
Okay, not long, but how did you plan to accommodate for, okay, if you're leaving one city and you're now moving your practice into another city,
Yeah.
how do you plan for that and like the attrition of clients and yeah.
Whew, it was a lot. But I just wanted to say, I never planned to be in Bradenton. I ended up like the way I even ended up in Bradenton was during COVID. I was working at an eating disorder treatment center and I got laid off. And so I had applied all over the state of Florida. And there was a hospital in Bradenton that was just, desperate for therapist, and I was like, this is it. This is my next job. So I moved, finished my supervision hours, and then as I was getting closer to completing everything required for licensure, and then I immediately had applied for that LLC right after I got my license. uh, I knew Bradenton's not the place I wanted to be. And I knew I was going to need some help figuring out where I wanted to go, and how I was going to do it. So I ended up attending this networking meeting at this place that I was running my office at. And there was a speaker there. She was like a business coach, and I ended up hiring her as my business coach, which was the best decision I ever made, because had it not been for her guidance, I don't know if I would have been able to do that. So she helped me get my ducks in a row. And then we kind of structured the timeline and how is this going to look, and expect that I will lose a certain percentage of my clients because they're not going to transfer over. And my model wasn't virtual so much, like I really wanted to do in person. So she told me, while you're still here in Bradenton, start to make that drive over there and start to network and start to try to get in on speaking seminars or conferences or whatever, so you can start to get referrals from St. Pete.
Mhm.
And that was so crucial because that means I was starting to develop that client body there. And I knew St. Pete was going to be great because it's an artsy city. It just feels like people were a little more open to art psychotherapy in general. And it just felt like more my style. So yeah, that's how it started out. And her name, by the way, I just want to put a plug in for her because she was just phenomenal. Her name was Katie Close, and she's actually based in Sarasota, but she provides business coaching to everyone all over the United States. She does virtual and in person. Um, but yeah, we like kind of timed out what was the financial cost I was going to need to anticipate,
Mhm.
because it would cost a lot of money and I would actually lose money. And was I okay with that? And because I had actually started picking up some pretty good momentum in
Yeah,
Bradenton, but I was like, I don't want to stay in this city. It just didn't feel like me. And so I was able to save up about $7,000 in a matter of like 2 months, which is really what I needed to make that move.
that's amazing. That that's a
Yeah.
lot of money to be able to save in 2 months' time. That's significant.
Yeah. It was a lot of hard work. I can say that.
Mhm. So that kind of helped you to, like, cushion during the transition.
Yeah, because not only was I having to look for a residential house, like I was looking for a rental office space. So we're talking two deposits, two first month's rent, and two like last month's rent, which was equal to about 7 grand, but including moving cost. And I actually secured my office space before I moved over there, because I just knew if I was going to start seeing clients, I wanted to start seeing them first before I was actually moved there. So I had a space to do that.
So were you commuting, and seeing clients there? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let me tell you, that was a big motivator to do like really hard work and make sure like I was on point, because I did not like that commute. That's for sure.
Oh, no, it's a brutal commute, for sure.
Yeah.
So motivated you to push forward and make the transition. For
Yeah.
other people, for listeners that might be in a similar situation where they have a practice, they've set it up, it's functioning, but they want to move and they want to move to a different city, what what are 2 or 3 things that you learned that you think would be helpful, for folks in a similar situation?
Yeah. I think checking the floorboards is so important, like the health of your business before you make that transition, just to make sure that the financial piece is going to be something you can do, like realistically. And so I was thinking about moving even a year prior to starting to get it all together. And also just looking at the demographics in the area that you want to be in, because one thing my business coach said to me was like, because I think there was a time I was like, I don't know if I want to go south to Sarasota or like to St. Pete. And she was like, well, a business is going to be able to survive one transplant, but to do a second transplant in a matter of 5 years is going to be very difficult for your business. So we need to decide which one will it be.
Mm,
um, and that actually made me feel like, okay, I need to know this is what I want. So I actually did go down to Sarasota and kind of got a feel for the city. But really, the St. Pete was just calling on my heartstrings. So I think it's important. Like, I was looking not only just in the short term, but in that long term, like, where do I want to settle down? Where am I at in my life? Does this align with where I'm at in my life as well? Because sometimes we can be spontaneous, but that might not be beneficial, decisions for the business.
Hmm. Yeah. So when you're checking out another city to determine whether or not um, there's going to be clients there to work with you, what were some of the things that you kind of investigated?
Well, first I looked to see were there other art therapists there, because if there was, that means that there were clients interested and there were clients there doing art therapy. And that was really important to me also, to have a sense of community with our field specifically, because it can be lonely when you're in a city and you're the only art therapist.
Sure can.
Um,
Yep.
And I don't like to look at it like, oh, there's more competition, because the reality is like there's enough clients to go around, and every art therapist has their own unique style. So it's like, I even refer clients to some of the other art therapists, and they do the same for me. And I feel like that was really important to me specifically. And then also just looking to see if there's art, if it's an artsy city. I mean, maybe that's not as important for some, but I thought that was really important for me, because then I can partner with certain groups. And that's huge when you can partner with a museum, or you can partner with an art studio, and you can like do art therapy groups with that company. It really makes a big difference.
Yeah, I agree. Having partnerships in the community is, I think it's it's helpful for a couple of reasons. One, I think that there's some stability there. Like once you have the group contract, you're not having to do as much legwork to get a new client in the door, whereas with individual clients, right, to get people to continue to come in the door, it's like there's so much work that has to come in for that. But once you establish a group,
Hmm.
it's usually for like a longer term situation, but that also adds visibility to your
Hmm.
work as a clinician and your practice, and can then become a referral source for the individual therapy services that you provide. Just
Yeah,
kind of like
absolutely.
that benefit there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. And I think my business coach also was like huge on looking for, she was motivating me to look for collaborations. And I needed to do that too, just to kind of generate movement and momentum in the beginning.
Hmm. So, what has been your approach for you moved to a new city? You didn't really know anybody in that city
No.
to like
Yeah.
create these collaborations. Are you just like going out like on like blind dates with other businesses? Like what's been your approach to make all of these connections?
Yeah. I joined some Facebook groups. One big one was the St. Pete Girl Boss group. It has like 4,000 members in it. And I, did some stuff with them. And then I sent out emails. That was something that, she was giving me a lot of homework. And one of the emails, it was like, try to email like 3 businesses a week to see if they'd be open to do a collaboration or have me come speak about art therapy. And that's how I got in on the NAMI conference, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which I thought was like amazing, because since grad school, I had not really been a presenter at a conference. So I was like, this is awesome. Now I'm actually presenting as a professional. So, but I ended up getting a few clients at that conference. So,
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
when I was at the conference, I was next to a table of a recovery home for women that was recovering from substance abuse. And then they asked me to come to their place and do, an art therapy exercise with their ladies, and it just was a snowball, so it's just so important, I think, to do those networking emails and attending the networking events.
Yeah, I think too, like it's not just that you attended, but you were really participating and you were providing something to the community through presenting.
Mhm.
And that I think leverages it leverages you as an expert, right? Where
Mhm.
you could have a table with like materials, but just a table with materials probably isn't going to garner as much attention as you providing that educational experience about art therapy, about coping, whatever it was that you were doing, that then
Mhm.
says, oh, like, yeah, I actually like want that for my business. I want that for my clients, or I want to refer somebody to you.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think even still today, there's so many mental health professionals that are not very familiar with what art therapists do. And when I did that presentation, it was a lot of psychoeducation, even to my colleagues in the mental health field, that then they had so much more knowledge and understanding. And there was some, referrals after their experience. I did like a bilateral scribble drawing um, exercise. And it's always just so great to see the excitement that people have when they're engaging in the art during a conference instead of just listening to a lecture.
Yeah, it's true. I have a quote up here on my whiteboard in front of me, and it's a Ben Franklin quote. And it's tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn.
Oh, that's great.
And but it really speaks to what happens when you engage your audience in that way at an
Yeah.
event, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I see that also at the retreats that I've been doing. I think we were going to talk a little bit about that too. So, I guess if you want,
Yeah,
we can
we
step
can pivot.
into
We can pivot
that.
and talk about what you've been doing with the retreats, which are really, really cool. And I feel like there's a lot of retreat stuff happening in the world these days. So um,
Yeah.
tell us about what you've been doing.
So I've been doing wellness retreats in partnership with a yoga instructor, and she's also a registered dietitian. So at the wellness retreats, what we offer is like therapeutic art making, yoga, sound healing, and psychoeducation, or we'll do like, group exercises, reflection exercises. And I actually just did a retreat last weekend, or the weekend before last. And it was so good. It was just like we found this new venue on the beach, and it was really that immersive experience for the participants. But, I started doing these like even before I was officially in my business because I
Hmm.
knew I wanted to offer some sort of art retreats or wellness retreats. And so that was my fourth retreat this past weekend. And I've been learning so much each time because I started out small and I started with a 3 hour mini day wellness retreat or half day. And now we're doing full day retreats. And now, like, even in the future, we're thinking about doing 2 day retreats. Um, but anybody I would say that's interested to host wellness retreats, it's like you got to do it with somebody because it's a lot of work. And I was just attending a retreat seminar actually this past week, and they had said that the average retreat takes approximately 100 hours to plan from start to finish. 100 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, because you got to think about it. It's like, you got to find that venue and if you have people flying in, you got to find, all the accommodations, the travel accommodations. Even if it's not included in the price, you want to have that posted on the website or your landing page. And the marketing is probably the most, in my opinion, the marketing is the most time consuming because it's like emails, flyers, word of mouth, just constant, posting in Facebook groups, and just being real intentional and mindful about it.
Hmm. And when you're doing the marketing piece, I imagine it is helpful to have a second person because now they have all their contacts too, which are different. So you're kind
Yeah.
of pulling in from different audiences. Um,
Yeah. And we got lucky this time. The venue was the Suntan Art Center. So it was actually an art center, and they had a gallery that was big enough to be a multi-purpose yoga studio. So we were able to do the yoga in the gallery, which was amazing to have all the art up on the walls. And then right across the hall was an actual art room with easels and stuff, and tables and chairs. And then they had an outdoor courtyard. And so this is the thing with retreats, like what makes it different than a workshop is it has to be experiential and it has to be immersive. Like, and you've got to have diversity of the setting. Like, you can't just have a retreat in like one room the whole time. You know,
okay.
it's got to be like including some sort of outdoor scenery or other elements that are engaging.
Hmm. When you have like a full day retreat, how do you account for feeding people? Because obviously you're at an art center. It's not like they probably don't have like a
Mhm.
cafeteria there or something. Like if you were at a
Yeah.
hotel, where you could coordinate with um, the kitchen there. How do you accommodate for food? Because people are going to get hungry.
Yeah, so we actually included the price of food in the ticket and we went and ordered catering and we had it delivered.
Ah,
We had it delivered during our lunch hour break, and it's like a whole orchestra of like movement, like as the facilitator, like during that lunch hour, I had about 30 minutes, and then, but the participants had an hour to be in the courtyard and just, mingle. But I was then also setting up for the art part of the retreat after. And so that's the thing. It's like this ebb and flow and this dance in a way of kind of orchestrating in between each activity, getting ready for the next and making sure everything runs smoothly. So, we had food in the courtyard and my co-host was cleaning up all the food stuff, all the food table while I started the next exercise. So that's why you can't do it alone. You've got to have people there to be filling in those spots behind the scenes.
mm-hmm. And how many people are you hosting at an event like
Yeah.
this?
This last one we had about 13, and we're trying to max out at 20. And so each time we've kind of built up a little more, a little more. But I learned in this recent seminar, like, how can we convert these into maybe clients? And so what are some of the strategies that we can use to continue to make money off of this retreat? And one way is converting them into clients by offering like post-retreat, um, you know, discounts on, groups or therapy, or we had like a whole self-care kit that we offered at the end of ours.
Oh,
Yeah, and
fun.
we did like there's a friend of mine that's a massage therapist. She offered free massage in that kit. Just like, some stuff. And then I had some stuff in there for my private practice and stuff for my facilitator's practice. So, And then the follow-up calls are really important just to check in because
Hmm.
people want to know, like, like if you call like that, it just feels like you care. It's not like it's done when the retreat is done. It's like, how did your week go after? How are you feeling? And we got a lot of great feedback from the post-retreat survey, which I totally recommend everybody to do, because the survey said that everybody's favorite part of the retreat was the therapeutic art making.
Oh.
So I was like, what? So they want more time to do the art. And so, in the past we had an hour. This time we had an hour and a half. And for future retreats, I'm thinking of like maybe the whole retreat doing like different expressive arts.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. It's amazing how quick an hour goes when you start to get into the process of creating. It's
Oh
like
my God, yes.
gone. You're like, wait, not enough time.
Yeah.
Especially if you get them all like grounded and relaxed first.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you screen people for like signups for the retreats the way you would a group, or do you have a different process?
You know, um, It depends. We market mostly through Eventbrite, but I did put on Psychology Today that I was hosting wellness retreats. And so people that reached out from Psychology Today, I was kind of screening them. They would mostly email me. And because the thing is like, we want to offer something that for somebody that maybe is interested in like supplementing their self-care routine or enhancing that. But it's the retreats that I've been doing is not appropriate for like people discharging from IOP program or intensive outpatient program, you know. So I'd say like right now I don't have anything formal, but with the Psychology Today inquiries, I was kind of being mindful of that.
Well, that makes sense, right? Because people are on there looking for therapy, whereas
Yeah.
Eventbrite, they're looking for something fun and
Mhm.
exciting to do. So
Yeah.
different positioning. Yeah. So when's your next retreat going to be?
So actually it's coming up, it's going to be in October, and it's going to be um mostly focusing on women who are looking to enhance their self-care, but also find relaxation, reclaim their voice. And what I noticed was, this is what my co-host and I afterwards, when we had our post-retreat kind of discussion and reflections, it seems like a theme of women that are in some sort of transitional period, whether it's the ending of a career, or we had a few, what's it called, empty nesters,
Mm-hmm.
where their kids are leaving the nest. And then we had a few that just recently had divorces. And so the common thread was like life transitions.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of fine tuning like what we're marketing to now, instead of like, hey, everybody, you can come to my retreat. We're kind of, narrowing it in.
Mm-hmm. Finding your niche.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's important. Um, Helps you to speak to them more directly.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm. So are you going to do it at the same place in October?
Yeah. So this one is going to be the same place, Suntan Center, Suntan Art Center. And we're going to have a segment again on the beach. That was like the end of the retreat. We did sound healing on the beach. I also do the crystal bowl sound healing. So my co-facilitator did the cacao ceremony in addition to the sound healing, and everybody just loved it.
Ah,
So
that sounds amazing.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I just think now with all this experience and feedback with the forms that we're getting, I'm so interested in connecting with music therapists and drama therapists and dance therapist, even, to collaborate to do more of an expressive therapies retreat.
Mm, that sounds amazing. Yeah. So maybe some listeners will reach out to you
I hope so.
if they're in like St. Pete, Tampa area. A great opportunity to collaborate on the beach. Who doesn't want to be like doing something like that on the beach?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So for folks that are listening, if they did want to reach out to you and connect, learn more about what you're doing, the different retreats that you're doing, but also to potentially collaborate, what's the best place for them to find you?
Well, they can go to my website, createflowheal.com, or they can email me also. It's createflowheal@gmail.com. Or, they can find me on Psychology Today. Yeah, so there's a couple of ways.
All right. So createflowheal.com or createflowheal@gmail.com to
Yeah,
email you directly, or find Amanda Shaw on Psychology Today.
yeah.
And it's really exciting to see your growth and development through this process.
I know. I can't believe it. I actually just celebrated my 1 year of my business the beginning of this month. And it feels like I've done so much. And I also feel so excited for all the possibilities that are going to happen this coming year. Um, and it's just crazy to think like where I was a year ago and
Mm-hmm.
where I'm at now.
Yeah, I love that. Do you
Yeah.
have any ideas of like what some of those possibilities might be? Do you have like something in mind percolating?
Well, what I really wanted to do was really get kind of more involved with the museums and the art, studios or the art centers. So um, this is the big difference that I'm doing this year versus last year. So last year I was just rolling with the punches, like whatever comes up, I'll do it. But this year I realized like that's stressful. I need to plan. I need to like secure maybe contracts or partnerships later in the year and have that already aligned and planned. So I'm actually going to be doing stuff with the Moraine Art Center during summer for the kids, and
Hmm.
I'm going to be teaching and doing a story cloth group at the art center in the fall. And then I was like, this sale of freedom opportunity with the sex trafficking victims, survivors, that kind of, they found me, and I was so excited that they found me. And so I'm working with them, and there's the possibility of working at additional sites with them.
That's awesome. Very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I love that idea of like thinking about the calendar in advance, and then creating opportunities that would balance out. Like during the summertime, if you're seeing kids, oftentimes it slows down. Even adults, people are, traveling, and different stuff happens in the summer, and there can be a little bit of a slowdown. So like by collaborating to offer a group during that time, that kind of helps balance some things out, which is a really great idea.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of the conferences also, they require for you to sign up early. And so I was like in January, I was thinking, okay, I want to present at a conference this year. I want to be on some podcasts. Thank you, Raina. And I want to teach or do a workshop or do something with an art center. And so far, 2 out of the 3 have come into fruition, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out about the conference. I'm waiting to hear back to see if I got accepted as a presenter.
Awesome.
So,
Well, I mean, you're on a good start. It's only March. So so that's pretty good for your
yeah,
goals there.
and it feels so good. And I just wanted to say a message to anybody that's listening about, if you're not sure about leaving like community mental health or behavioral health to start your own private practice, like financially, I'll say my first year, because we're doing taxes now, I made the same amount of money that I made working in behavioral health. And so to me, like, I couldn't believe it. I thought for sure my income was going to be less in the first year of private practice, but it wasn't. And so I can already feel that this year is going to be even more income
Mhm.
because I'm doing more, collaborations. So like if you're thinking about private practice and you're just not sure, I would say go for it.
I agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree. There's so much like greater satisfaction. There's like that, pride of creating something that didn't exist before. Um,
Yeah.
and of course, you get to follow your intuition of like, what do you want to do next? What do you feel like doing? Do you feel like doing a retreat? Do you feel like doing a group? Um,
Right.
you get to create it all. Just,
Absolutely. It was such a breath of fresh air moving from like acute psychiatric to private practice. It was so I almost had like a shock wave, like of like, whoa, I can't believe the difference here. And I'm never going back. That's what I thought. I'm never
yeah.
going back because it's just like I'm able to do work-life balance now. And
Hmm.
before, I was just working myself to death because it was that whole system in the community health. It's just like, it's just so hard. It's tough.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, I just promote private practice all the way. Yes, it's a lot of hard work in the beginning, but once you get those systems in place, it's much easier than it sounds.
Yeah. I agree. It's the part of like, well, I don't know how to do all that part. I don't know how to do the business part. I know how to do the therapy part because I've been doing that. And so that feels really
Yeah.
secure. But all the business stuff feels like very overwhelming for people, I think, because they hadn't had to set any of that up. Some people have if they were in management and administration within, you know, one of the behavioral health agencies that they were at. But for most of us, it was that stuff was all taken care of. And you're just given all the information of like, here's what you do. Here's all of your
Mhm.
paperwork. And now you're like, I have to create all that myself. I have to do all that. But you're right. Like once you get it done, it's done and you can focus on the thing that you're really good at, the therapy.
Right. And I think times have changed so much in the field. Like, there's so much more stuff virtually and electronic, like electronic medical records and stuff, that we just have so many resources at our fingertips that have simplified what it means to be a private practice owner. Um, so there's the you can be paperless in today's age. You don't have to do any of that anymore. And so I think back in the day, it was a lot more intimidating. But now, like, there's just so many resources that you can use to have it as simplified as possible.
Yeah, totally. Totally agree. It's a great time to go into private practice for sure because there are so many resources. There's so many people that are, consulting around it. There's trainings around it. There's so many resources, book, and like you were saying, the electronic health records. so much to support doing it. It just makes a lot of sense to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me today and sharing about all the cool stuff you're doing in your business. And I'm excited for you.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I mean, I always listen to your podcast and I love them. And there was somebody that you interviewed a few weeks ago, or I mean, a few months ago, and they had mentioned like how even if you're new in the field, you're still worthy. Like you could still be on a podcast, like you still have stuff to say. And I was like, dang, they're right. Like, I might
Yeah.
be new in the field, but I've got stuff to say. So I'm so oh gosh. So I'm really appreciative that you had me on, you know.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad that that hearing that helped helped you to feel like supported and putting yourself out there and sharing your wisdom because you have it. You've
Yeah.
been doing this work and creating something. And gosh, I mean, to move your practice to another city and still be, you know, successful in obtaining clients and everything, that's a big, big challenge that I think a lot of people, uh, maybe who have been around doing the work a lot longer, maybe they don't have that wisdom, but you have it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, not without a help, you know, and I think the community, we're here to help each other. And so, you know, even though if you're a sole owner of a business, you're not alone and you don't have to do the work alone, you know. So having that business coach, having amazing mentors like yourself, Raina, those that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I agree. It's it's we're better when we can work together and gosh, other people when you're working with them, they're going to have insight that you're not seeing from your perspective. That can be really valuable. So
Yeah.
that part is worth it, the investing in yourself. It took me a long time to do that personally, but once I did, I was hooked. It's like, okay, this really was worth it. Um, Makes a big
Yeah,
difference.
definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, thanks, Raina.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Creative Psychotherapist podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation that I had with Amanda Shaw. She's awesome, and I have known her for quite some time. And I just thought, you know, people need to know that it's okay to start wherever you're at. And then if something else happens and you have to make a shift, that it's okay and that it's possible to make the shift and still be successful. And I hope you appreciated hearing about her experience with that. If you enjoy listening to the show, please do rate, subscribe, give us feedback, and share with others you think might enjoy the episodes as well. All right, everyone, stay creative and take care.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Creative Psychotherapist. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. For show notes, downloads, and additional resources, head over to the website at www.creativeclinicianscorner.com.